come to a birthday party. Okay, now let's see. I was flying at Spartan one night with a student, and he needed some night flying and some instrument training experience, and so we were up flying, and it was dark, and all at once we heard a giant roar, really, really loud. Really, really loud.
Oh, no.
And then a shadow came over our airplane. And then something grabbed our airplane and went woo, like that, real hard. I thought the wing was going to come off. That was scary, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So when I regained my composure, I picked up the microphone and called the control tower, and I said, Tulsa Tower, what just passed us? And he said, a B-66 jet fighter plane just flew over you. It almost hit us. So that was scary, okay? Yeah, it came right over us. That was scary, okay?
Oh, yeah. I would be so scared.
What else you got?
So what was your advice for someone my age to get into flying?
What would be my advice to you? How old are you?
9.
What grade are you in?
3rd.
Okay. Well, study hard, okay? I carried a lot of books home when I was in school, okay?
Me too.
But you know what? I didn't read them, okay? Don't tell my teachers I carried the books home. You know, I could make fairly good grades. I could make B's and C's and maybe once in a while an A, but you know, I could have made better grades if I'd opened those books and read them, right? So study hard, learn all you can, and maybe concentrate on some math and, you know, some subjects like that. And just study hard, and then when you get out of school, if you were, I can't tell what things are going to be like when you get out of school, but right now there's a school here in Arkansas, down at Melbourne, called Ozarka College. And right now, Arkansas has a grant that will pay for your flight training at Ozarka College. So they will pay the entire cost, probably $100,000 or $150,000 worth of flight training, absolutely free. The state will pay the whole thing at Ozarka College. So you study hard, and you hope that program is still in existence when you get out of school, okay?
I know I'm on
Because if you have to go out and pay for it by yourself, it's quite expensive.
I know I'm on the AV honor roll because I have like a whole bookshelf of books,
Uh-huh.
and I read them.
Good,
So,
good.
Oh, frick, my phone turned off. No. Alright. So, that was the ends of this question, and now let's get to the museum questions.
Okay.
So, what is the purpose of the Wings of Honor Museum?
Well, we started the museum 25 years ago. This airfield we thought was a really, really important thing in World War II, that it made a real big, significant contribution to the war. Over the course of about 20 and a half months, we trained 5,310 pilots here in Walnut Ridge. So about probably 3.5% of all the pilots that were trained nationwide were trained here in Walnut Ridge. And that's pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to preserve that history. And then we thought about all the guys that learned to fly here, and all the people that worked here to build the airfield and to operate the airfield and everything. We thought it was really important to preserve their history also, and to honor them for their service to the country. And so that's why we started the museum, to preserve the history of the airfield and to honor those that serve. Okay?
Okay. So, what was the purpose of the base here in Walnut Ridge?
Well, it was called a basic flying school. There were a lot of phases of training. There were a lot of phases. Excuse me?
So you didn't get very many planes?
No, not many. It was a basic flying school. There were a lot of phases of training when they started flight training. When the war first started, there were so many people wanting to be in the Army Air Forces, they didn't have room for them. They didn't have enough training camps, enough airfields. And so they initially sent about 100,000 guys to 151 different colleges around the country, and they parked them there for 5 months to give themselves time to build training facilities. And then after that, they'd send them to a classification center to take a bunch of tests to determine whether they'd be better as a pilot or a bombardier or a navigator. And then there they'd go to a phase of training called pre-flights, where they'd get a lot of physical training and military indoctrination and studying various things about the airplane and about flying and navigation and those things, okay? Then from there, they'd go to their first flying school, and that was called a primary flying school. Those were built and operated by civilian contractors. They were much smaller than this field. They had a lot fewer buildings, had generally just a big sod runway field that they landed on. So they'd be there typically about 9 weeks, and fly about 65 hours, and then they'd come to a basic flying school like Walnut Ridge. And they'd stay here 9 weeks and 65 more hours, then on to an advanced flying school. So we were a basic flying school. That was the intermediate phase of their flight training. We were one of 26 basic flying schools in the United States. So ultimately, when they first started, there were only 9 primary contract schools. Ultimately, there were 56 primary contract schools, 26 basic flying schools, 44 advanced flying schools. Okay.
Okay. So, how long was a pilot trained here?
Well, they were here about 9 weeks and received 65 hours of training, okay? And over the course of the 20 and a half months we were in operation, there were 18 classes came through here, about 5,310 pilots altogether.
Okay, so is there any facts about the base here in Walnut Ridge?
Any facts? Well, the fact that it had a 203-bed hospital, that there were 82 babies born there while it was in operation, that it had a chapel and there were 110 marriages in the chapel, that it was the biggest basic flying school in the Southeast Training Command, that it covered 3,096.22 acres, that it had 5 auxiliary fields. They covered another 2,623 acres. And then there was a radio range station between here and Pocahontas, and it covered another 10 acres. So it was a big place. It created 2,500 construction jobs when they were building the airfield. And Walnut Ridge at that time only had about 2,000 people. So folks came from everywhere to work here. You know, a lot of folks came from Paragould and Jonesboro and Batesville and Cave City and Smithville and Strawberry and Pocahontas, just all around. And not only were they building an airfield here, at the same time they were building an airfield in Malden, Missouri, and Newport, Arkansas, and Blytheville, Arkansas. So if you wanted a job, jobs were here, okay?
Okay, so I saw pictures of the bombers and fighters here after World War II. Can you explain what that was about?
Yes, the war was over. They thought there wouldn't be any more wars. They thought we didn't need these airplanes anymore. Then they had just developed the jet airplane, and most of these airplanes were kind of obsolete at the time, okay?
Okay.
With the jet coming online. And so they needed to get rid of these airplanes and try to recover some of the money they'd spent to fight the war, okay? And so they offered the airplanes for sale. Some folks say they brought 10,000 airplanes here. One book said there were 11,000 airplanes brought here. I tend to think probably not that many, probably more like about 5,500 or 6,000, maybe 6,500 at the very most, I think. But anyway, they offered all the airplanes for sale. Well, not many people want a fighter plane or a bomber, right? But most people wanted a training plane, so most all the training planes sold, most all the transport planes sold. So anyway, excuse me, the sales kind of fell off and they weren't selling many airplanes, so in the fall of 1946, they sold 4,871 airplanes in a lump sum bid those all had to be chopped up and melted. So they built 2 big smelters down here. They pull off the propellers and the engines and the instruments and the radios and the batteries and the wheels, and they chop that airplane up and push it off in the smelter and melt it. Okay?
Okay, well, that is the end of our questions.
That's the end of your questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You want to sign it?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, I get to sign your shirt?
Yeah, you get to be with the fighter pilots.
Oh boy. Well, let's see. Okay, let's see. All right, you're signed.
Okay.
Now then, I had another scary story, and it's about being hijacked. And this tells all about my hijacking. And you can have this. And this is the map showing where we went. And here's a pair of wings for you that you can put on your shirt when you go back to school and tell folks all about your story, okay?
Okay.
And about your visit to the museum. And talk to your teacher and say, why don't you bring the whole class to Walnut Ridge and let's take a sack lunch and spend a day at the museum. Okay?
Okay.
All right, let's do that. Thank you so much.
Teachers will
That's